Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on Facebook, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1. Tonight we're here to talk about a matter which has been simmering for some time now, which is to do with the transport sector and the petroleum sector. For some time now, transport operators, commercial drivers have been agitating for the increase in fares that they charge commuters when they board their buses. This has been going on for some time now, with these transport operators making the case that fuel prices at the pump have been going up consistently over the period from last year until now. They've been talking about how spare parts have been also going up. The other lubricants they purchase for their vehicles in terms of servicing have been going up, and yet the fares they charge, the sales they make to their owners has remained still for some time now. They had projected that they were going to increase fares by 30% somewhere last week. They had conversations with government, and the back and forth today were able to arrive at a conclusion, with the latest being that transport fares are going to go up by 15%. And this will take effect on the 26th of February 2022. We know in this country, we can't talk about transport fares without talking about its impact on the pockets of commuters and passengers who will be boarding these trotro buses, these taxis, and even those intercity buses as well. We can't talk about fares without talking about its impact on commodity prices. We can't talk about fares without talking about the pricing window when it comes to petroleum products in this country. It's been obvious the prices have been going up, and going up. And so tonight we ask, would this 15% increase in transport fares suffice, or would have a situation where petroleum prices will go up at the pump, and in the next few weeks or months would have these drivers back on the streets demanding for an increment in fares? That forms the basis for our conversation tonight, live on Fact Sheet, live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1. My name is Samuel Ishen, and I welcome you to tonight's edition of the show. You can quickly dash to Facebook and look for the handle ETV Ghana, or look for Samuel Ishen GH. Follow us there, share the link to groups, platforms that you are on, and let's have a very wonderful conversation tonight. We'll start with a short breather, and then we commence the conversation. And you're welcome back to Fact Sheets live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook. I encourage you to join the conversation with your thoughts, your views, and your comments, even as we discuss the matter of the incrementing transport fares and the likely impact it would have on us. But question is, does this 15% satisfy the transport operator, seeing that initially they were gunning for 30%? What would it mean if 15% is not sufficient for them? And what are the likely impacts on their businesses, considering that they have always been claiming that spare parts have been going up, lubricants have been going up, and so they have not been able to meet their sales that they make to their owners of their vehicles? Tonight, I'm joined in the studio by Mr. Benjamin Isia, who is research head with COPEC, and I would also be joined on the phone line by Mr. Godfred Abubri, who is the General Secretary of the GPRTU. I'm joined on the phone line by Mr. Abubri now, and I'll commence the conversation with him. Mr. Abubri, good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you're doing well tonight, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
All right, thank you.
All right. So 15% increase in transport fares. How did we get here, and what were the factors that went in at arriving at this figure?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then let me also say good evening to your listeners. What happened is that some time back, we held a series of meetings, and then when I say series of meetings, involved 50 transport unions that formed a coalition. and the coalition sought to actually take a different approach on the general issue of fair increment. And what we did at that time was to submit a petition to the government through the Minister of Transport, asking that there were some particular taxes that had actually helped in raising up fuel prices. So we sought to let them reduce or remove such new taxes just to allow the fuel prices to come down, such that we will not come into negotiate for fair increment. But we have done that right from November up to December, and then we even threatened to go on a strike. But all those issues, we had held meetings with the government, and even as far as with the Chief of Staff, and all the issues that we were discussing was particularly centered on removal of taxes to allow fuel prices to come down. Now, having seen that that was a fruitless battle, we had to now resort to the only option of increasing our fares, which we started just the beginning of this month, February. And what we did was that all coalition met, selected a committee, and the committee went around and did a survey of all the components that actually determine the running cost of commercial cars. So when we did that, we have seen that increment by average was about 28% from the fuel to the fare pass, and another 50% from the fees that the government charges on all commercial cars, assembly rates, lorry park tolls, and the rest. So adding up all, it was far, far above the margin that we could absorb. So on that document, we submitted to the Transport Minister saying that we would suggest to increase fares by 30%, waiving off about 30% of the survey we had done. And then we then said that by such decision, by 19th of February, all negotiations should have concluded, and then the fares would be adjusted. So when we went for the first meeting, we realized that the Minister himself did not even see the document we have presented. So he called for it on the meeting there and looked at it and said that whereas what we have done is a good document, but we have to have time and study it. So from that Monday, we had to adjourn to another Monday for us to go into the document and see all the components we had mentioned on the document. So next Monday we had gone there. So all discussion centered on that. Minister said, no, it is fair after looking at it, after having looked at our document. But if we just want to increase fares by 30% outright, the situation is that it will put more burden on the general public. Looking at the current situation of the country. Rather, why can't we spread this particular issue from a first schedule to another schedule and another schedule? So that at the tail end, we are achieving what we want, but in a way that people can absorb it. So the first time, they offered 10%, we did not accept. Next meeting, they offered 15%, and then I accepted that. And then he said he was going to go and then do consultation with the presidency, and then to come back. So yes, yesterday, Monday, we had met, and then finally, we had done our survey with the fuel selling at 7.45 per liter. Just before we will come back with this Monday to another Monday, it has gone up to 7.99. And that was the best option was to allow us to increase by 20%, which of course, that will give us another long period before we can come back for any fair negotiation. But with all discussions, the ministry said that it will sort of push up the burden that we are going to push to the general public. But rather, why can't we, within the next pricing window, fuel may go up a bit. So better we look at it that, take the 50% and adjust. And then all put on the communique that we're going to sign, that by the next increment or next pricing window, once the point of fuel price goes up by another 10%, then we will come back for another fair increment, maybe by 2 or 5%. So based on that, we were still not trying to accept that. The minister reminded us of our initial thoughts that we say we didn't want to pass on the burden of the fuel margin to the traveling public. And now what happened this time around, we are just coming out without even thinking of a waiver of some margin, but just want to do all the calculations and fix and then increase. So these are the series of cashes that entered into our negotiation that we had to actually consider the plight of the customer who puts us in business, and then we accelerated the 50%.
All right, so I'm interested in the earlier position you had held that you were not going to increase fares, but rather you were going to compel government to reduce the taxes on the petroleum products. What happened that you changed your mind on that particular action you wanted to take?
Yes, exactly so. The reason being that we had presented the petition before the reading of the budget. And we had all the assurance that they will appoint the Minister of Finance and make sure something is done on our request. So that was why we had all the hope that would happen. But when the budget was read, we didn't see anything of that nature. Rather, we saw that among all the other issues, which we said that toll booths should have been removed or reduce the margin that they charge on the toll. So that was what we had seen, that shortly after the budget, toll booths were removed. Or the toll levy was cancelled. So we think that for now, if we cannot ask or make pressure on government to remove the nuisance taxes, and we cannot buy fuel at that high cost and operate on the old fares, which we had agreed to increase around June last year. So our members were operating at serious loss. Because fuel was sold around that time at 27 cedi per gallon. And now it is sold at 36 cedi per gallon. You can imagine, about some 9 cedi added there. So actually our members were complaining, and I can applaud them so that they have been able to be a bit calm and very tolerant for us to complete this thing, which we did yesterday.
But is it that you didn't believe in the potency of your strike to compel government to remove some of these taxes, regardless of the budget being read?
Yes, of course. We did that. I don't want you to just say copy, but we have said that we were not going to accept anything apart from removal of the nuisance taxes. And that we had stated, that was on 6th December, that all driving public or the operators were going to go on the sit-down strike. It was done. But with the ease to the we had a series of calls, and that were we invited to the presidency for us to negotiate on the matter. And we did. Suddenly, that time, fuel prices were sold at 6.99. And the very night we held the meeting, in a matter of some 1 hour, calls were made, and then Boyle agreed to come down to 6.70. And with the assurance that within next week, it will come down to 6.60, which actually we saw that it happened. It happened within the December period. And fuel prices from all around, from the 6.99, came down to 6.60. Even others were selling at 6.40. So that was an indication that there was something being done at our request. So there was no need to make a U-turn and ask for increment when we were going on a particular tangent.
All right. Now, let's come to the present. This 15%, when is it taking effect? We hear it's 26th. Is that really the case?
Come again?
I'm saying this 15% increase we hear is taking effect on the 26th. Is that the case?
That's the Saturday coming.
Yes.
Yeah, we agree that by the course of today, all letters should be dispatched to all the regions, and then all branches and all loading coming out to have all the calculated figures and then pasted on their boards, such that by Saturday, if before the Saturday, most of their passengers can see and prepare their minds before Saturday that it's going to be implemented. Yes.
All right. Now, in ending the conversation with you, sir, I want to find out, this 15%, is it really going to take the burden off your drivers and their mates who have to do sales to their car owners?
The 50%?
Yeah. Is it
Come
going to
again.
take the burden? I'm asking that this 15% increase.
Not
Is it?
at all. Not at all. The important thing you should know is that there's nothing that can be done that you can actually make in full. You have to make halfway. And it leaves with the sector, but any other business in Ghana now, looking at the COVID sector that has from 2000 up to now, you cannot say that you will make up the profit that you want in any form of business you are doing in Ghana now. So certainly, we have to absorb some part, and then the traveling public will absorb some part. Yes.
You earlier made the point that in your engagement with the minister, he made the point that 30% was too high and that you had to spread it. By spread, is that to say that this 15% in the next pricing window, we are going to have the introduction of some percentage increase if it goes up?
Yes. You see, when the word I use the word spread, you see that we are saying that from the first kernel means that by this particular calculation, we will agree at the 15%. But within the next month or two, our initial arrangement or the protocol that we have with the sector ministry was that within now, when we increase fare today, unless 6 months' time, now you have to come, regardless of how fuel price will go up. But they have changed that particular month. And now we are saying that by the next increment of 10%, whether within 1 month or 2 months, we will come back for another fare adjustment. That is it.
All right. And you think that Ghanaians can show that there's 15% increase as much as you were thinking about them previously, for which you decided to strike?
That is the important part of this act. We are not too sure whether Ghanaians will absorb it. But the question is that operators decide if they say no, we can also buy fuel and buy back. It's just going to be the same burden that they are going to face. Yes.
All right. Mr. Abubri, I'll thank you for making time to speak to me this evening.
Thank you so much, too.
Mr. Godfrey Abubri joined me tonight. He's the General Secretary for the GPRTU. Share with us what went into arriving at the 15% fare increase that we are talking about tonight. My brother, now he tells us that per the arrangements they have now, in the next 2-3 pricing windows, if the prices of the petroleum products go up by 10%, then they would go back to the ministry to have a conversation about an increase in the percentage in terms of the fares that commuters would have to pay. From where you sit as an industry player and a think tank, what's the outlook?
Thank you very much. I think before I get to the outlook, I must commend commercial transport operators in Ghana, because if you look at the way prices have hiked over the last 1 year, I think 15% is quite inadequate for them to cushion them in this particular industry they are operating in. Because if you look at the prices between January and then February this year, prices have increased by 55%, which began January 4 Ghana cedis 90 pesos, and today as we speak in 7 Ghana cedis 99 pesos, almost 8 pesos. That is 55%. So if someone goes into a negotiation table and then government allocates 15%, whilst they wanted 30, I think it's kind of a win-win situation, because government started from 0 and they started from 30. So let's break it out or build a consensus that's the midpoint or the medium, which is 15%. Now to your question, the outlook, I think that prices will continue to surge. If you even look at the benchmark indicators MP has published on its website, realize that the first window of March, beginning 1st March, prices will surge by at least 30 pesos per litre, which indicates that we are crossing the 8 Ghana cedis per litre in March. And then if things, the bullish sentiment stands as they are now, looking at what is happening between Russia and Ukraine and certain sanctions on Russia, as against the shortfall in supply of petroleum products amidst a higher demand based on COVID recovery, like post-pandemic recovery, then it tells you that prices of petroleum products on the international market may surge over $100 per barrel. Whilst prices are surging over $100 per barrel, our currency is also depreciating. If you look at, based on the MPA website benchmark on currency depreciation, MPA is saying that if you compare the last window to only this window, about 40 pesos has been added into the dollar. They are quoting the dollar at 6 Ghana cedis, 80 something pesos. So we are in a serious challenge as a country where your currency, which is used in factoring export prices in Ghana, is on the declines. It's depreciating against the dollar, whilst international market prices are also on the increase or are surging. Then it means that before even March ends, if our calculations are right, products could be sold at 9 Ghana cedis per liter locally. And the outlook is, I think that commercial transport operators cannot just come within 2 years. They cannot just come within 2 years to say that they want to, within 2 months to say they want another fare increment. I think it will take a longer time, looking at what happened between January to May last year. For example, between January and May last year, we had fuel prices increased by 23%, but when they went to the negotiating table, they got only 18%. And then from May to February this year, fuel prices have increased so far by about, I think, 32%. They went and then they got only 15%. So I don't see them getting additional percentage increment in fare within the short 2 months. Maybe it will take another 6 months, which could be cumulative in a while, then we get it. But how can we intervene? I think government needs to intervene, looking at the way prices are surging. Government needs to put up certain measures in place to cushion everybody, just like what the Nigerians are doing. For example, if you look at the Nigerian economy, the Nigerian finance minister, in presenting his 2022 budget, stated that they were going to take off subsidies from their petroleum regime. And for that matter, they were going to save $7 billion, which is equivalent of 46 billion Ghana cedis, 6 times of e-levy. However, when they realized that prices were surging on the international market, the Nigerian government said that no, we are not going to take off the subsidies again. We are reintroducing the 7 billion subsidy program onto the Nigerian market. Ghana shouldn't call for subsidies, but because whenever we call for subsidies, government finds its way to tell us that we've accumulated certain debt in the sector. What we Ghanaians are calling for, and COPEC is calling for, is that we should look at the taxes on the build-up and then at least take some of them out of the build-up. When we take some of them out temporarily, when prices are even declining on the international market, we can introduce them again, so that the volatility locally will not be felt much. When we go that way, I think the petroleum consumer locally and everybody who uses, including AGI, will kind of have a sigh of relief and then benefit locally. However, if we don't take up certain interventions in the sector and then allow the prices to continue to surge and then amass our depreciation currency, then it means that it's going to be very, very consequential on the petroleum consumer locally.
Let me look at the impact this 15% would mean on the pockets of commuters who would be paying the fares from Saturday, 26th of February 2022. I'm joined on the line by Mr. Emmanuel Amwadakwa. He is a financial analyst, and we'll begin his thoughts on this matter. Good evening, Ima, and thanks so much for joining us.
Hello.
I'm hoping you're doing well.
Hello.
I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, I'm doing. Great.
All right. So, 15% increase in transport fares, seeing that already. Inflation, we are concerned about it. Our currency, its strength against other forex, we are concerned about it. Just before we came on air, I was reading on one of the platforms that the benchmark discount or value that was for general goods, which was 50%, has now been reduced to 30%. That for vehicles, which was 30%, has now been reduced to 10%, which would mean that the prices of these vehicles as they get into town would obviously go higher. So what I'm asking is...
Hello?
Yeah, Ima, are you hearing me? Hello, Ima? Yes, do you hear me?
Yeah, the line...
All right, but is it better now?
Yes, it's better now.
So I'm asking, what would a 15% increase in fares mean on the economy and on the pockets of Ghanaians?
Thank you very much. So, for
in Ghana in terms of how many people would be or road association. The statistic more than 90. And so you expect an increase of the disposable income of.
All right, Ima, your line seems a bit terrible. We will try and reconnect with another line, so
Okay.
we'll see if we can get good reception to have the conversation. It
fine.
just it's a bit erratic there, so we'll try and re-establish contact with you. But let me come to the point you're making about the outlook. So this is going to be a cyclical situation we are going to see if we are still going to work with this deregulation approach we're using. Because you tell me that, let's say, within the next 2 months, there's a high possibility we are going to attain this 10% mark which they have agreed on. If we arrive at that, it would mean that we're going to have a situation where fares are going to go up again. Per the negotiations they may go, which would obviously be halved for us to arrive at that median. Because you're talking about 23% in the past, and then they got 13%. We're talking about 30%, and now they are getting 15%. So then, this is going to repeat itself continually the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm very, very skeptical about a 2-month increment in fare. I think that will not be kind of appropriate to the commuter.
Seeing the situation in Russia and Ukraine, and the sanctions.
You see, the thing is that if government, I always maintain that post-COVID pandemic period is a period where most economies are going into poverty, and most households and firms are kind of becoming more poorer. And the World Bank even data shows that we are going to get additional 97 million people becoming more poorer post-pandemic period, which is post-COVID period. Now, if that is what is going to happen, then it is incumbent on government to bring up certain interventions to alleviate people from this poverty situation, right? And the best way for government to do is to reduce inflation. One best way, if you look at if you take a critical look at the statistics published by Ghana Statistical Service, Ghana Statistical Service is telling the whole Ghana that between May, the inflation was 7.5%. Today, as we speak, in January, is 13.9%. And this actually, one of the main factors that contributed to this high inflation is because of prices in petroleum products. Now, when we are going to get petroleum products increasing our inflation, then there's the objective of government getting a single-digit inflation will not be achieved. So what should government do? We are saying that government should critically look at the price builder, because when you buy a liter, you pay 2 Ghana cedis 43 pesos. And I don't think that government wants to worsen the plight of its people. Let's look at the 2 Ghana cedis 43 pesos on the builder per liter, which is about 12 Ghana cedis on a gallon. Let's look at it.
But this is a government that is seeking to tax Ghanaians 1.75. We are crying, and still government says, okay, we still want to push through and charge you 1.5 on electronic transaction. Government is in dire need of money, and you're telling the same government to go and remove some taxes, which is a source of revenue, which it has used to calculate its budget projection?
I think that we have to critically, and all of us have to critically look at the taxes, the levies, and the margins on the build-up. You see, they were brought in for a purpose, and they were brought in on the build-up by acts. What were these acts? What were the functions of these levies? Have we, should I say, are we done, exhausted? For example, how can a country like Ghana continue to pay for toll debt recovery levy since 2003? For good 19 years, we are still paying for this particular debt, and we are not done yet. Are we serious as a country to continue to pay for this debt? No. How can you buy fuel and pay 56 pesos to the power sector, whilst the power sector is not a subsidized sector? Can we continue to do that? At what point are we going to end? If you take the state ownership report of 2019, it tells us that ECG at that time was in net loss of 912 million Ghana cedis. Can we continue to go that way? I think so. We need innovations. Me, I've always maintained that, and COPEC, that is our view, that when people come out to say that government needs revenue, I think government is not looking far enough. Government is not innovative in getting the revenue it wants. For example, the government itself, through SIGA, State Interest and Governance Accountability, has told us that the state-owned entities we call some state-owned entities, joint ventures, and other state-owned entities, OSCs. If you put their equity together, they worth 500 billion Ghana cedis. Just imagine 5% retention from this equity of 500 billion Ghana cedis. That is about 25 billion. 25 billion will combine both the e-levy and the levies on the petroleum product. So I think we need to be innovative and efficient in managing some of these affairs and also cut certain expenditures. When we rationalize our expenditure properly, we will not need to tax petroleum because Nigeria is doing the same. Today when we are out, people tell you that, oh, international market prices are skyrocketing. That's why local prices are also skyrocketing. But we buy same product we buy from the same market where Togo buys. We buy from the same market where Benin buys. We buy from the same market where Nigeria buys. We buy from even Burkina Faso and some of the landlocked countries even pick products from Ghana. But their prices, export prices are cheaper than ours. For example, if you go to Togo today, the export price or per gallon in Togo equivalent of Ghana cedi is 25 Ghana cedis. Ghana is 36 Ghana cedis per gallon. If you go to Benin, it's 26 Ghana cedis. Ghana is 36. That is about 10 cedis per gallon, more than what is sold in Benin. If you go to Nigeria, because they have a subsidized regime, they are selling their product at 12 Ghana cedis per gallon. That is equivalent of 12 Ghana cedis per gallon. We are selling at 36 Ghana cedis a gallon. So it tells you that even if you are not careful, there may be some people who may even go to Togo. If you say those are the borders, may go to Togo, Burkina Faso, or even Benin, or even Nigeria, bring fuel into this country to come and sell. So you realize that people are selling fuel, and even the revenue government wants to realize, government may not realize it. I hope you get it. So we are thinking that the best way for Ghana to cushion the petroleum consumer and households and firms in Ghana is to reduce petroleum products. If you reduce the price of petroleum products locally by reducing some of the taxes on it, even the inflation that is skyrocketing, today is 13.9. In February, it may even go higher. In March, it may go higher. And whenever it is going higher, the standard of living of the average Ghanaian is worsening. And if government wants to improve upon the standard of living of the average Ghanaian, we are thinking that the surest way to do that is to look at the petroleum sector, reduce the taxes on it, because even today, as we speak, some of them are nuisance. They are not supposed to be there. And we don't even know the purpose for which they are there.
All right. Let me ask Imam, what likely impact this 15% increase may have on us, one, commuters, and the prices of commodities on the market? Imam, good evening once again, if you can hear me.
Yeah, good. I can hear you.
All right. So I was asking, what likely impact the 15% increase in fares may have on us and then the economy?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It is predict that this incremental is going to affect prices of services on our market. Because if you look at the transportation sector, a lot of people use the roads, and a lot of us also are consuming these petroleum products. And once they are consuming these petroleum products, then the prices of fares have been increased. It will really trigger or translate into higher prices of goods and services. And what that means is that the disposable income of Ghanaians will reduce because they will have to spend more on education. For example, if I am a government worker, I earn 2,000 Ghana a month, and I was spending 100 cedis on transportation. This 15% increment means that there's going to be a 15% increment on my budget for transport, which means that the money I'll be left with to spend on other things will be reduced. And if this happens, the disposable income of Ghanaians will reduce. And more importantly, as your guest in the studio has said, if you look at the cost of inflation as we are experiencing, a majority at the weight or the basket we use in measuring the inflation, you could see that petroleum is very paramount. So that inflation rate will also be going up, all things. What it means is that once inflation rate is going up, prices of goods and services will go up. And also one of the indicators that the Bank of Ghana considers before it adjusts upward or downwards the monetary policy rate is the inflation rate. What it means is that once inflation rate is going up, the monetary policy rate is also likely. Once it's also increased, then the cost of credit will increase. and it will affect all the other macroeconomic indicators. So it is a very challenging situation we find ourselves in. That's why I can agree with the submission of how we can reduce prices of petroleum products in the market so that it will not have an increase in inflation, which will also affect your monetary policy rates and then the other macroeconomic. Yes.
How does the ordinary Ghanaian then survive, seeing that salaries have not been increased, whether in the private sector, for the public sector, 4%, whether that's commensurate enough in terms of how 15% would translate into the prices of commodities either going up or maybe in other sectors of the economy?
Well, I mean, multidimensional poverty is not drastically as we wanted. But if people have money, we cater for needs that they need in life to cater for it because of the price of services. And so they will be worse off if that I can do this set of consultation.
All right, it looks like we are having a bit of a challenge with Ima's line, but if we are able to re-establish contact with him, I would want to find out how this picture he paints for us, which is a bit scary, what it means for us, especially with the Fitch rating which came out, being negative, S&P and their rating which came out, and several others which have come out, which for instance, government has had to contest some of these ratings that came through just a few weeks ago. What would it mean for the country in terms of our ability to, get support from other nations or investors who may be willing to invest in our country if, for instance, we're able to pass the e-levy and then per government spending plans, we're able to spend in the economy for businesses to start, moving again so that businesses will pick up. But back to the issue of petroleum, if we're able to raise him again, I would ask him that question. Now, is it about time we had a conversation about this deregulation, program we are running as a nation, seeing that even with the forces of demand and supply working, if you listen to the GPRTU man, he says that when they went to meet with the transport minister and the chief of staff, the promise which was made them was that GOIL was going to reduce its, fuel prices. I think around that time from 6.7 to, I think, 6 point something. 6.9. If the government could influence GOIL to reduce its fuel prices, with the rest of them maintaining their threshold around that time, isn't it about time we had a conversation as to whether this deregulation is really the path we need to go?
I think let's correct this misconception out there. I think I've heard communicators say that when GOIL decreased its price from I think 6.99 somewhere in November to 6.70, it meant that government had a certain influence on the management or that particular decision. It is not true. It is entirely false, because GOIL came out to say that government did not subject them, government did not control them, government did not place any price on them. They rather looked at how the the international market prices were plundering at that time, and then decided to reduce the prices, export prices locally.
But so government had nothing. Isn't it interesting that at the time the OMCs raised concerns about that particular thing, which we had heard from the GPRTU, and this evening he confirmed that that is what they had been told. So
yes, we also heard same that when they came out, they said that government, but GOIL came out to say that, and I think they said it strategically, because GOIL doesn't belong to only government, right? GOIL also has other partners, private partners, not only government. So when you have an entity that government can just at any time control their prices and their profit, maybe you scare certain investors out of GOIL. So the issue is that GOIL has come out to state emphatically that government did not control their price in November. they rather look. And let me tell you one thing. You see, at the time Goel reduced their price from 6 Ghana cedis 99 pesos to 6 Ghana cedis 70 pesos, international prices were plundering or were in decline, right? So they sensed that, and in sensing that, most of the OMCs also followed queue. Like they also reduced their prices at that time. So government had nothing to do with it. I think let's come to deregulation. Deregulation is a nice policy.
Before you move on, let me just run up with Ima, and then we can run up in the studio as well. So Ima, welcome back.
I'm here.
Yes. So my final question would be that what can the ordinary man do, seeing that there hasn't been any commensurate adjustment, upward adjustment in salaries for especially those in the private sector? As for the public sector, maybe they got some increment.
We'll have to look at how best we can cut unnecessary budget expenditure at the individual level. And so for you to have that income that do something tangible, cut some unnecessary expenditure. That is one to do. But if we can also cultivate the habit of carpooling, I don't do rampant. But let's say I work and you work in we live in the same car, then you cannot. I can, and then we can set the cost. You will be able to use the price of quotation a budget that are allocated, and I think that we should start at the government level. There's a time that we look at investment in transportation, only public transportation. Government has good intentions of bringing the bus rapid transit and all those kind of bus rapid transit project. I think it's about time that we can look at that so that we use the best Ghanaians. So once they are comfortable on public transport, it will not be necessary for them to be driving their cars, and at the same time, prices of petroleum prices are going up. So these are some of the things that we can do.
All right. Ima, I'll thank you for joining me. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, I'll throw my final question to you, and then Benjamin will end the conversation. We'll be right back. All right, you're welcome back to Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 FM, and I'm here with Benjamin. And my final question, Ben, would be whether some consideration must go into the deregulation program we are running.
I think in answering that, you see, the deregulation program would have been the best program for Ghana if we hadn't introduced taxes and levies on the build-up. For example, if you take out the 2 Ghana cedis 43 pesos per liter on the build-up, today prices would have been around 5 Ghana cedis 60 pesos. I hope you get it. Yeah. So deregulation would have been the best policy. And whenever in the deregulation market, whenever international market prices decrease, right, the export price locally also will decrease. And whenever the cedi also appreciates against the dollar, the export price locally will also decrease. However, the reverse is also true. So deregulation would have been the best for us. However, in introducing the deregulation policy, government also found a way of introducing taxes on the build-up.
There's a question I need to ask before I forget. In all this talk we are having, there is supposed to be an agency where if world crude prices go up, they would have a store of fuel so that they would release into the market, and then we can buy at a rate which we'll be comfortable with. BOST. Why isn't BOST coming to our aid with the prices of crude going up?
Over I think 2018, the best BOST could do or did in 2018 was I think 2 weeks. They could store product for only 2 weeks. However, if you look at the BOST Act per se, it was supposed to store strategic products for 3 months. So, and I also had the same understanding that whilst prices were
skyrocketing,
were decreasing at that time, somewhere in 2020, prices even went as low as $20 per barrel. In any country, strategically, would have bought products, stored them, and then when prices begin to rise, then in preparing the minds of your consumers, at least you'll be cushioning them small till we get to where prices are. But boss doesn't do that. However, when you buy a liter of fuel, you pay boss 9 pesos per liter.
So what role is boss playing? As
of now, boss is a commercial entity. Boss doesn't store products. Boss is a commercial entity like any depot stores products for other BDCs and its own products, and that is what boss does. Boss doesn't store the strategic products that it was meant to store, or it was established, that function it was established to perform. If it had actually performed that function, boss could have hedged certain products, could have bought certain products earlier at lower prices, and then now begin to sell them into the market, at least in a month, then prepare the minds of Ghanaians that now products on the international market are skyrocketing. So Ghanaians embrace these new price increments so that at least everyone understands. But boss doesn't do that.
But we saw stabilization levy being removed for, I think, 2 months or 3 months or so. We didn't die.
The stabilization levy is not even supposed to be on the build-up. Because, you see, if you look at the original act, at 899, it performs 3 functions: stabilize prices, pay forest under recoveries, and then subsidize premix and RFO. In this particular deregulation regime, we don't stabilize any prices. The BDCs buy the price at the price they buy it and sell it to the OMCs. At a dollar rate, they buy it and sell it to the... So no one stabilizes prices in this particular deregulation policy. No one pays for under recovery, forest under recoveries in this particular deregulation policy. The only aspect is subsidizing premix, right? And the premix subsidy is an agricultural subsidy, and always experience, research has shown that there's no way, it is not positive to subsidize agric input product, because when you subsidize an input, agric input, it doesn't get to the intended beneficiaries, right? And that is why today, when you heard Mr. President went to France and said that Ghana imports 200 million worth of fish into the economy. But every year, we subsidize 320 million Ghana cedis of premix to the fishing sector. Why should we spend 320 million Ghana cedis to subsidize a particular sector, yet imports $200 million worth of fish into the economy? It means that the subsidy product on the premix is not worthwhile. Like it's not. We are not benefiting from it. So government should stop that subsidization on premix. And then if government stops that, then it means that we are going to save 16 pesos on a liter. That shouldn't be on the build-up. We have maintained that price stabilization and recovery levy should not have been on the price build-up, because we are in a deregulation regime. So no product is subsidized. No product, apart from premix, no product is stabilized. No product is paid on under recovery, because BDCs pay, they buy the product and sell it as how much they buy it. So I've said it earlier that the deregulation policy would have been the best policy of Ghana, for Ghana, if taxes and levies and margins were not introduced on the build-up.
Right.
If they were not introduced, my brother, prices would have been around 5 Ghana cedi, 50 pesos per liter.
Ben, I thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, bro, for being here.
Tonight, we're joined in the studio by my friend and brother, Benjamin Nzia, who is head of research, COPEC Ghana. We're also joined on the phone line by Mr. Godfred Abubri, who is the General Secretary of the GPRTU, and Mr. Emmanuel Amwadakwa, also join us from the economic point of view, sharing some thoughts with us. I thank you for joining us tonight on Fact Sheet. God willing, tomorrow morning, there'll be a repeat broadcast of the show at 10 a.m., but I'll be on the Happy Morning Show, 5:30 to 9. Do make a date.